Hello and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and these are the top diabetes stories and headlines of the past 7 days. As always, I'm going to link up my sources in the Facebook comments where we are live this Wednesday, August 18th, 2021, and in the show notes at diabetes-connections.com when this airs as a podcast. So you can read more if you want, whenever you want. And In the News is brought to you by Real Good Foods. We are big fans, and I'm really glad to have them here. Real food you feel good about eating. Our top story as the U.S. looks into booster shots for COVID-19. There are a lot of questions about what that means for people with diabetes. Right now, those with weakened immune systems are eligible to receive a third dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. And the White House announced a plan just today to start covering all Americans later this year. But right now, the CDC says people with diabetes who also have one of its listed immune-compromising conditions should consider getting an additional dose. The American Diabetes Association, together with 14 other health organizations, has sent a letter to the CDC asking them to consider the health risks people with diabetes are facing with COVID-19, noting the group has made up about 40% of all COVID-19 deaths. Lumjev gets the U.S. FDA okay for use in insulin pumps for adults. This is Lilly's ultra rapid-acting insulin approved last summer for type 1 or type 2 via pen or syringe. It's Humalog with two additives. One helps open up blood vessels for faster absorption. The other enhances the insulin's action time. Lumjev joins Novo Nordisk's faster-acting Fiasp, already approved for pumps and for kids. Beta Bionics announces progress with one of its partners, Zealand Pharma. A compatibility study is complete. They are on track to begin screening into the islet bihormonal bionic pancreas pivotal trial by the end of this year. Some interesting tidbits in the recent Zealand conference call. They are studying exercise-induced hypoglycemia, which they call an area of significant unmet medical needs. They're also looking at obesity, focusing on the hormone amylin. They have an analog that should be in phase 1 clinical development later this year. Amylin is a hormone that helps you feel full. It's secreted with insulin from the pancreas. People with type 1 don't have enough of it, and people with type 2 have issues as well. Another peptide, this one called MOTS-C, is showing promise in very early testing to prevent type 1 diabetes and maybe other autoimmune disease. It helps regulate the immune system. These researchers at the University of Southern California and Seoul National University found in mice that treatment with MOTS-C prevented the destruction of the animal's beta cells and kept the mice from developing high blood sugar. The research was published in the journal Cell Reports. A new study published in Neurology is reporting an association between a particular class of drugs used to treat type 2 decreased Alzheimer's disease biomarkers. Now, it's unclear how it all works. Alzheimer's experts are calling for large-scale clinical trials now. Separately, an Australian study last year saw significantly slower rates of decline in older diabetic patients taking metformin. All subjects were followed around for 6 years to measure decline over time. Cognitive scores were similar in all groups at the start of the study. All right, file this one under shocking. No, I don't believe it. New study shows you can save money with generic medication for diabetes. Investigators in India conducted a prospective study for over 6 months to better understand the variations between branded diabetes drugs and generic options, including complications of type 2. A total of 1,800 patients were included, ranging from younger than 20 years to age 100, in a price comparison for the most commonly prescribed branded and generic drugs. The investigators found significant savings for patients prescribed the generic options. Generic metformin had a 40% saving. That was the lowest saving. Differences as high as 75.8% for the other generics. These researchers say prescribing generic drugs is one way to lower costs, but the biggest barrier is patient and physician skepticism about their efficacy and quality. Editorial here. Really? There also may be the fact that there is no true generic insulin. The diabetes market is such a big moneymaker that PBMs and insurers may not always cover when a generic is possible. I know this study focused on type 2 and not on insulin, but at least in the U.S., most patients with diabetes would welcome more generics. Big day for insulin pricing advocacy at the White House last week. Gail DeVore, a longtime grassroots Insulin for All supporter, sat down with President Biden and took over the White House Twitter feed for a few hours. This was as Biden unveiled a big policy proposal that could change the way drugs are set for Medicare. Drug prices are set for Medicare. Medicare can't currently negotiate prices on prescription drugs. Biden's new plan wants to change that for a, quote, subset of expensive drugs that won't face any competition in the market. The plan would then call to take that to private insurers as a next step. There is a terrific article about Gail's work and her meeting with the president over at Healthline, and I'll link that up. Thanks for doing the hard work, Gail, and for bringing our voices to the White House. More to come, but first I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors who helps make Diabetes Connections possible. It is Real Good Foods, where the mission is be real good. They make nutritious foods, grain-free, high in protein, never added sugar, and from real ingredients. And they keep adding to the menu line. Terrific ways to start your day, like waffles and breakfast sandwiches. Great meals made with cauliflower and stuffed chicken. You can buy online or find a store near you with their locator right on the website. We love the ice cream. I'll put a link in the Facebook comments. And as always, at diabetes-connections.com. Back to the news now, and congrats to those diabetes care and education specialists recognized at the virtual ADCES 21 annual conference. Specialist of the Year is Dr. Samuel Grossman, clinical pharmacy specialist and diabetes care and education specialist at the Department of Veteran Affairs in New York. And Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. Steve Edelman, former guest of the podcast and founder and director of Taking Control of Your Diabetes. Dr. Edelman has been living with type 1 since 15, and he was recently named to the top 1% of endocrinologists in the U.S. by U.S. News and World Report. There are many awards given out. Please check the link for all of the names and info. And finally, I want to share a terrific story I saw in a Facebook group and got permission to share. Adam Duvall has type 1 diabetes, major league ball player, plays for the Atlanta Braves. The Aiken family lives in New York and decided to make a trip to watch him play. So this game was in Washington, D.C. It was quite a haul for them, but it was the closest they could find to go and see him. So here is what Christina Aiken says happened. Once the game started in the second inning, we got Duvall's attention with our sign and loud yelling, and he came over and gave our son, who has T1D, a baseball. Throughout the game, we continued to cheer his name and held our sign up high. He would salute or wave. He even took out his T-Slim to show our son that he had the same pump as him. At the end of the game, Duvall told us to come over to the dugout, so we met him, and he spent several minutes talking to us and was such an awesome guy. He signed the sign we made, signed the baseball he gave our son, and gave the baseball bat he used to hit the home run. This is fantastic. And if you are listening later on, I am sharing the photos of this family at Adam Duvall, and I will post them in the Diabetes Connections Facebook group. You know, the diabetes community is like no other. Even celebrities and pro athletes who live with it get it. Thank you, Adam Duvall, for doing all of that. And thank you to Christina Aiken for sharing just a wonderful story. All right, please join me wherever you get your podcasts for our next episode. On Tuesday, you're going to hear from Kyle Banks, a Broadway performer diagnosed with type 1 while appearing in The Lion King. This week's episode is out right now, and it features my son back home from 1 month overseas. He was with a youth program not focused on type 1. He is 16, and you bet I'm happy he's home, but we both learned a lot. I think it's an interesting episode to listen to. And that is it for In the News for this week. If you like it, please share it. If you're watching this replay on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening via the audio podcast, please follow. Whatever it is called, it is always free. I think that's important to let you know as we're hearing subscribe and follow and all the different terms that everybody's using. You know. Come back soon. Thanks so much for joining me.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.